In 2010, on the stage of the X Factor, producers put together a group that would go on to become the biggest boy band phenomenon of the decade, One Direction. Millions of fans, hundreds of shows, an overwhelming wave of fame. But behind the blinding lights and screaming crowds, a story was already beginning to take shape, a story that would become the band's most talked about mystery. Two members, Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson, behaved from the very first days in a way that made thousands of people wonder, was it just friendship or something more? In the old footage you can see it, all the lingering looks, a whisper in the ear, hugs backstage. Soon, their names were merged into one, Larry Stylinson. This theory grew to incredible proportions. Fans claimed they wrote songs for each other, got matching tattoos, and were forced to hide their feelings under the pressure of management. More than 10 years have passed, yet people all over the world are still asking the same question. What really happened between Harry and Louis? Was Larry real? Or was it the most beautiful, fanny-created illusion of the 20th century? And so we begin to look closer to understand why this story refuses to let go of millions of people and what facts lie at its heart. 2010. Britain is watching the X Factor. From solo contestants who had come to the auditions hoping for their own careers, a brand new group is unexpectedly formed. They were just ordinary boys, school kids, students, dreamers who had no idea their lives were about to change forever. And then, in one of those cramped rehearsal rooms with old mirrors and worn microphones, two of them, Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson, found themselves side by side. From the very first days, the way they spoke to each other looked as if they had known one another for years. Harry, with his curls, soft gaze, and calm manner. Louis sharper, ironic, with a mischievous smile. The contrast between them was perfect, and fans noticed it immediately. In the early behind-the-scenes videos, you can see how they constantly search for each other with their eyes. In group photos, they stand next to one another. During rehearsals, while everyone else is talking about notes and arrangements, but with the two of them many laughing together, these were the very moments as if sharing some private joke. When they first stepped on stage as One Direction, the camera caught their glances several times. Those short seconds, unnoticed back then, would later become GIFs, slowed down clips with captions like, "Look at the way they're looking at each other." And perhaps it was this spontaneity, this spark of a new friendship, that felt so special. Because in the world of show business, where everything is calculated down to the second, something about Harry and Louis felt real, unscripted. And it was on this ground, on this chemistry visible even to the naked eye, that a theory would take root, a theory that would live on for years. After the X Factor, One Direction's life turned into a whirlwind. Tours, fans, interviews, music videos. And every time Harry and Louis appeared together, it felt like a little side story within the band. Fans began collecting these moments. 2011, the first tour. There was no habit yet of keeping a polite distance. And on stage, they weren't afraid to just be themselves. Louis would run up behind Harry and hug him, and they would both burst out laughing. At a concert, Harry would lean in close to whisper something in Louis's ear, and again, they'd laugh. These were reactions you cannot plan or fake. Interviews showed the same thing. When one of them answered a question, the other would watch, sometimes openly admiring. At some point, fans began cutting out these very clips. Look, Harry is watching him for 10 seconds straight. Or, here Louis just slightly touches his hand. From dozens of tiny, fleeting fragments, an entire mosaic of their relationship began to take shape. The internet started to explode. Tumblr and Twitter became hubs where fans posted screenshots and GIFs with captions like, "This isn't just friendship." The first Fanny-made videos appeared slowed-down shots of their eyes meeting, their hands brushing, the unguarded smiles. These clips collected hundreds of thousands of views and turned Larry into a phenomenon of its own. At first, it was all taken lightly, almost as a game. But as more and more of these moments piled up, a sense began to grow that there was something more behind the friendship. Especially when the two of them would jokingly talk about living together, about spending so much time with each other. Every little comment in an interview became fuel for the fire. Fans started to say, they act like this because they have to hide their real feelings. And so, the air around them thickened with mystery. By 2012, Larry Stylinson was no longer just a meme or a joke. It had turned into a full-blown theory, with thousands of pages on forums where people analyzed every second of every video. By the time the first wave of fan clips and photos of Harry and Louis had taken over the internet, casual conversations were no longer enough. What had started as harmless concert edits gradually turned into a true phenomenon. Fans began compiling whole dossiers, notes, timestamps, dates, every word they said in interviews, every single post they ever wrote on social media. It began to look like a global investigation. People created blogs and forums filled with posts, cross-referencing events, looking for hidden connections. Tumblr and Twitter were overflowing with pages dedicated entirely to Larry Stylinson, from screenshots of tweets and backstage photos to long, detailed theories explaining why, according to fans, the boys were forced to hide their relationship. A whole branch of theories revolved around their tattoos. Fans noticed that Harry and Louis had many designs that seemed to come in pairs. Harry had a swallow inked on his chest, and soon Louis got one too. Harry had a rose, and Louis had a compass, which, in the fans' imagination, points directly to the rose. These coincidences became the subject of endless posts where people broke everything down step by step, explaining why these drawings on their bodies were not random, but a secret language. But the analysis didn't stop there. It moved on to songs. Every time the band released a new track, fans would dissect the lyrics line by line, looking for hidden meanings. Any phrase that hinted at impossible love, secrecy, or distance was taken as a coded message to one another. Around this, an enormous fan culture grew. Articles were written, podcasts were recorded, Fanny-made documentaries were shot. There even emerged an entire subgenre of fan fiction dedicated to Larry. Some of these stories were read by millions. They ranged from sweet tales of first meetings and friendship to dramatic plots about two people who fell in love, but whose love was forbidden. And over time, it stopped being just a joke. For many people, these stories became a way to express their own emotions, to see in their idols something they themselves lacked in real life. Larry Stylinson turned into a cultural phenomenon, one that began to live its own life, independent of whatever Harry and Louis thought or said. The fan theories grew far beyond the band. They created a community where people talked not only about One Direction, but about friendship and love itself, under the relentless gaze of the world. Many fans wrote openly that Larry, for them, was a story of hope and support, a story that proved something real can exist, even under the crushing pressure of public opinion. When the group split and the members began their solo careers, fans were given new material to analyze: lyrics. This is where the Larry theory got its second wind, because people began to search for hidden messages in every word. The first song to cause a real explosion of discussion was Two Ghosts by Harry Styles. The lyrics sound like an admission that two people who were once close are now like ghosts to one another. We're not who we used to be. We're just two ghosts standing in the place of you and me. These lines were interpreted by fans as a story of a relationship that was once alive, but turned into something that could never be brought back. Dozens of videos appeared online, breaking down each phrase and drawing parallels with the years of Harry and Louis in One Direction. Then came Sweet Creature, a soft and tender song where Harry sings that, despite arguments and hardships, they always find their way back to each other. To many listeners, it was obvious that this song carried a personal message to the one who stood by him during the hardest times. On Louis' side, the song Just Hold On, written after the death of his mother, caused the greatest stir. Louis said that during that time there was someone who helped him get through it. Fans immediately decided he was talking about Harry, because Harry was among the very first to be there for him, no matter what was happening in their personal and professional lives. Over time, fans began to treat the lyrics of their songs like letters to each other. Every line, every melody was analyzed under a microscope. YouTube filled up with long videos where fans compared verses and choruses with specific dates, events, and interviews. And even that wasn't enough. Even the smallest gestures on stage, a fleeting glance during solo performances, or similar choices in clothing became, for fans, evidence that an invisible connection still remained between them. Curiously, the more Harry and Louis tried to keep their personal lives private, the more intense the fascination became. Every new song was no longer seen as just music, it became a diary, one that they wrote but revealed to the world in a coded form. For those who believe in Larry, the music became a bridge between past and present. It preserved the energy that once existed between them on stage and made it eternal. But the stronger the Larry Stylinson theory grew, the more complicated real life became for the people at the center of it. What, for fans, looked like a captivating romance and a source of inspiration turned into a heavy subject that constantly haunted them. Louis has said more than once that this talk ruined the ease they used to have in the beginning. He explained that, in those early years, he and Harry behaved naturally, joking, sitting together, hugging, and there was nothing unusual about it. But after the internet began to interpret every move as proof of a secret relationship, any interaction became fuel for gossip. In one interview, Louis admitted it felt like losing freedom. Even the most normal behavior between friends instantly ended up under a microscope. If I looked up, it became a headline. If we sat together, it was cut out and posted online as evidence. It changed everything, and it became impossible to just be friends. Harry, on the other hand, was more restrained and rarely spoke directly about it. His answers to questions about Larry were usually evasive. He said he didn't want to ruin the magic for fans, but he also didn't want people to see something that wasn't there. That position, neither confirmation nor denial, only poured fuel on the fire. The more they tried to protect their privacy, the more fans began to search for hidden signs. Every step turned into a detective case. And in a way, this distance grew between Harry and Louis. They stopped being so open in public, trying to avoid new waves of speculation. Over the years, it became clear that their relationship had changed. Whether it was simply the weight of fame or the result of the very pressure created by these rumors, the fact remains, what had once been an easy friendship turned into a complex and painful subject that they now rarely touch. The story of Larry Stylinson is not just a fan theory. It is an example of how an enormous audience can create a legend that begins to live independently of reality. Why did this story become so captivating? First, because it brought together two strong personalities. Harry gentle, mysterious, with a special kind of charisma. Louis sharper, playful, a little defiant. Their contrast was so striking that the public saw in it a balance that drew attention. Second, One Direction appeared at a time when social networks were just starting to change the music world. Fans, for the first time, had the power not only to watch but to participate. They created memes, wrote fan fiction, edited videos. Every little moment became part of the collective story. And third, this story carries an element of mystery. Fans felt like they were uncovering a secret hidden from the rest of the world. It gave everything a sense of meaning, as if they were the first to see something genuine and special that the cameras weren't supposed to capture. For many people, Larry became a symbol of something bigger. In fan communities, People often write that they see themselves in this story, feelings they can't express openly, friendships that grow into something more, and the hope that true connection can survive any system. Larry Stylinson spawned an entire culture. Fan blogs, art, podcasts, even books and documentaries made by fans. This story stopped being just about Harry and Louis. It became a symbol of an era when fans themselves created an alternate reality around their idols. More than 10 years have passed. One Direction no longer exists. The members have gone their separate ways, building their own careers. And yet, the name Larry Stylinson continues to surface on social media. Was there love between them? No one but Harry and Louis knows the answer. They will never confirm it, and most likely, they will never want to return to that subject. But perhaps that is not the point. The point is that the story of Larry became something more than a rumor. It became a legend about how a simple friendship can move millions of people. It showed that in a world controlled by managers and corporations, people will still search for authenticity and believe in it.
We think it would be a
And
great
maybe
idea
that's why those fragments from
to
2010,
have
two
two
boys
separate groups.
standing side by side on stage, laughing and looking at each other, still stir so many emotions. Because in those moments, it doesn't matter what was real and what was imagined. What matters is that millions of people believed in a story where two people found something extraordinary in each other. And it is that belief, that energy, that has made Larry Stylinson an immortal phenomenon, one that will be talked about for many years to come. There are stories that outlive their heroes. They don't need confirmation or denial, because they live on in the hearts of those who once believed. The story of Harry and Louis is one of those. Long ago, on a talent show where a new band was being formed, two strangers ended up standing next to each other. No one could have known that a simple friendship would become the beginning of one of the most talked about legends in modern music. Since then, years have passed. Tour after tour, thousands of concerts, millions of screams and songs, and somewhere behind it all, there were still those glances, those smiles, those little moments that fans kept in their memories. And maybe that is why the story of Larry still lives. It gives hope. Hope that in the vast, loud, unrelenting world of show business, something real can still appear. That even in the chaos of fame and the blinding light of the spotlight, where every gesture is recorded and analyzed, there can still be feelings that cannot be faked. Because if you think about it, there is no evidence in this story, no confessions, no photos that put everything in its place. There are only millions of people who look at them and see something of their own. For some, it is a story of forbidden love. For others, a story of a deep and unbreakable friendship. And for some, simply a reminder that true emotion is always recognizable. More than 10 years have passed. The band members have each gone their own way, their own music, their own stages, their own lives. But something from that time has remained untouched. A feeling that cannot be described in words, but still awakens every time we see those old clips, filmed during rehearsals, on tours, in backstage hallways. And maybe the most important thing is not that the truth is hidden somewhere deep, but that it doesn't need to be found. Because in the end, Larry Stylinson became something greater than a rumor. It is a reminder that the true power of human stories lies in the emotions they leave behind. The years pass, but again and again the same two faces appear on screen. A young Harry, with his slightly shy smile, and Louis, always laughing louder than anyone else. And for a moment, it feels as if time has stopped. And in that moment, you understand, legends don't need an ending. They go on every time someone presses play on an old video, searching for that one glance. And maybe that is the true magic of this story, not in the answers, but in the fact that it will forever remain unfinished.